Hey.
Hello and welcome. We're back. We're back for another week. It
Yeah,
felt like a long week this week.
it
Did it for you
dragged.
guys?
I
Yeah.
think it was kind of because we had that break last week, and 3 day weekend, and I got to sleep in a little bit, and which
Yeah.
always makes me a pretty pleasant guy if I get to sleep in.
A little more sleep than normal.
Yeah.
I'm dragging this week. First week back after taking a week off, and man, it's kicking my butt.
Yeah.
Getting back, getting up at 4:30 again. I'm like, oh god.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
Ugh,
That's the
I
worst.
need I need my like Alexa to figure out how many actual work days do I have left, not the length of time until so I can start having a countdown for that. Minus the weekends, minus holidays, and minus my vacation time. Like how many?
she'll go.
Yeah.
You know what she'll say? She'll go. I don't know that one.
Yeah.
That's what I get.
Probably. Well, welcome everybody. We have a show tonight on conspiracy theories. And Dirty Birdie, this is one of his favorite topics.
Yeah.
So
They're always fun to think about, and I don't always believe them all, but they're fun to think about.
they
Definitely.
are sometimes they come true, don't they? Sometimes they're true. They're based on the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
uh w-
every one of these is like there's a little kernel of truth somewhere in there.
yeah.
So,
Well, yeah. So why don't we start with your conspiracy theory, Dirty Word?
okay, my conspiracy theory is Project Looking Glass. Now, this all came about a little bit after World War II. And what Project Looking Glass is that it's a piece of alien technology that we allegedly traded with um, Dwight D. Eisenhower with these reptilian aliens to peer into our past, present, and future. And what this does is that it gives certain elites, people in power, uh, access to different timelines, and they can manipulate those timelines to essentially get what they want. Like, as in, um, say you're an up and coming ruler of a country, but you have some sort of another person defying you, and you want to be able to win this war so you can take power. Well, this yellow disc will essentially scan your brain and show you exactly what path to take to get there. So it's very dangerous, I would say, in the wrong hands. And unfortunately, some of these people had there's been quite a few people and elites that looked into this, and unfortunately, all these timelines converge into one thing, and it's like called like a singularity, which is basically um, the destruction of Earth. So anybody that looked into this, it all came into the same exact end, which is uh, um, timelines becoming the fallen Earth. So I guess they canned the project, took the disc, hit it somewhere, and nobody's seen it since.
So
But
this conversation that we had came about. I mean, this topic that we wanted to talk about because we were talking about we all got together for dinner a couple of weeks ago, and it was the Simpsons,
yeah,
right? Like the sheer number of episodes of The Simpsons that have been true. And it's like they predicted all of the future stuff. And you said that allegedly Matt Groening was part of
he was
this.
he was a part of this, and one of the questions he asked, because you can ask it just about anything, and I'm not really sure what his question was. Like, I want to be rich and famous, and the cube showed him exactly what path to take to get there. And I remember seeing the first pilot episode of The Simpsons on the Tracy Ullman show
Mm-hmm.
way back
Yep.
when, and it was super crude.
Yeah.
First time drawing a couple of those episodes, and next thing I know is they get a pilot episode, and all the characters have changed, and it just blew up
Yeah.
almost overnight. And
Mm-hmm. It may have shown him the path to success, but how did all those episodes predict so much that had come true? That's the conundrum that I have. Is like somebody said, well, it's just the sheer number of episodes. But I'm like, no, there's more than that. There was level of detail in those episodes that 15 years later, 20 years later, that came true.
how could
That's
you rem-
craziness to me.
how could you remember all that information? I mean, you're going from when did this come out? 88 to now 2025, 40 years of information, and you just happen to pepper in just episodes of this is going to come true, this is going to come true, and this is how it's going to come
So
true.
are you saying he had access to this thing the whole time?
No, I'm saying
No?
it. I'm saying he had access to it once, and he asked it a question, and it just went, okay, here you go.
And it
And
wired his brain?
yeah,
Ah.
and it showed him all. Yeah, it showed all that future. So I don't know how you can remember 40 years of all this future information. I don't even remember what I had for lunch yesterday. So,
I thought it was cottage cheese.
ew,
So
ew.
that would be
'Cause it,
interesting. How so allegedly this like world leaders had access to it and what
Yeah, yeah. If you wanted to know, or just like the powerful elites, if you wanted to know the outcome of a war, it would show you. If
okay.
you wanted to start a fashion trend that would really catch on, and you're up and coming, it would show you how to do that.
Okay. So
So,
only
so
the
we,
though
so
had
or
this is kind of
societal
like,
trend. Yeah,
I was going to say, this is kind of like manifesting your own destiny, right? So
except
what
it
what go ahead.
except it would give you the ultimate shortcut. You'd be like, this is exactly what you need to do to get there.
Yeah, but what do you have to give it?
yeah, good
That's
question.
that's the other question.
I mean, is it kind of like selling your soul to the devil? Is it, one of those things where eternally, forever, one of these days, it's kind of like the Godfather. Look, one of these days, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to ask a favor of you. So, if this is definitely true, right, where they're going this way, and I don't know any other way. This guy has just tapped into so much stuff. I mean, from uh, the COVID virus, that friggin', Trump presidency. There's just so much stuff that he's called, and it might not trail 100%, but it's close enough. And it's kind of scary when you kind of look at stuff like that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's that
You
creepy,
know,
spooky, uh-oh type thing.
right? Exactly,
So
exactly.
I think about the power you would have if you had access to that. Some things I don't want to know. Like if
Yeah,
you people ask you, like, if you had, would you want to know when you're going to die? Would you want to know this and that? I'm like, I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know if
Yeah.
I want to live every day with that date stuck in my head,
Right.
and that level of dread that you're going to get as you get marched closer and closer to that date.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's the other part of
Yeah.
it, is that it all plays on human fear of, we don't know what the future is. We can't predict the future. Can't go back to the past to fix it because it's already happened. So
I don't know, dude. This guy he's pretty much nailing it. I mean, it, they call it in law enforcement what they call a nearby, right? It's nearby. I have a close or something like that. And the stuff that he has done is just it's baffling, you know. And it's
yeah, I
kind of
mean,
like you said, it's spooky, scary, man.
yeah, I mean, yeah. Like, what are the odds?
Right,
So
exactly.
Okay.
But
So
I mean,
I just Googled this. How many episodes of The Simpsons actually predicted future events?
33,
30, well, 34 it's what it said, but maybe
34. Yeah.
33. Yeah. So out of how many thousands, though? We're just
Yeah.
remembering those because they did come true.
yeah, how many
Yeah.
episodes though?
How many episodes of The Simpsons were there? 790 so far. Looks like
So 33 out of
that's
790.
that's not a lot.
No, but it's still pretty creepy that
It is
34
creepy.
episodes were predictable. So maybe it's
Yeah,
not.
exactly. I mean, what are the odds that that I mean they're so close. They're just so friggin' close. I mean, I don't know. That's some scary stuff, you know. And I don't know, man. You know, going back to what you were talking about, Colleen. Would you want to know you know your out date, right? Because everybody has an out date. I mean, everybody's got an in date and everybody's got an out date. I don't know if I would want to know when I'm dying or you know when I'm going to die. I don't know if that would be something that I would you know I that kind of stuff is I don't know. I just you know
Okay.
like I said I want to die in my sleep like my uncle did, not like the other five people in the
Mhm.
car screaming and hollering. You know that's the way I want to go.
Right. I don't blame you.
So, I mean, it's really that's a really fascinating thing, and I was trying to read up on it, but then I kept saying the alien thing, and I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, am I not looking at the right conspiracy thing here? I don't. It was
And
weird to me.
no,
So,
this is the one of the bigger ones because it ties into Project Stargate and then Project Bluebeam and Project Montauk and the Mandela Effect and all these other sorts of things. You got,
so basically, it stems from alien. It's an alien technology.
it's an alien technology, yeah.
Okay, that's fascinating. It's fascinating. Mad Max, did you look at something or Mud Lover? What did you look at?
We'll let Mud Lover go ahead.
No, take
Yeah,
it. You
Okay.
can
come
take
on,
it.
Mud Lover. You can go. What you got?
Ah. Okay, so I'll just take off from where Birdie left off because I went down the looking glass rabbit hole.
Cool.
And so, speaking of Dwight D. Eisenhower, he supposedly was given the yellow cube by the Orion Group. So I went down the Orion Group rabbit hole. They date back to the early 20th century, spotted first in Europe and the US. In the mid 20th is when their presence really gained traction. So they're thought to be descendants from a race of aliens that lived on Orion millions of years ago that had to leave their planet because of a devastating event. So, they, I'll just go down they think they came to Earth to observe humanity and study our development, and to possibly guide us in our elevation, or even possibly saving us from ourselves. Some people even say that they think one day they want to take over the planet. Their presence, they have, they look like, I do this every single time. I think I write it down and I don't. So they also said that they look like insects. They're insect-like aliens, and they want to interbreed with the humans to guide us in our timeline. Yeah, it was really, there's so much.
What are these things called?
Well, they are called, they're called the Orion Group, but they have, they're kind of like the extraterrestrial side of the aliens. I read that there's two. There's extraterrestrials and another group, and these are more of the ET type, based on how because they look.
So these don't have anything to do with the alleged lizard people that are living among us, right?
Yes.
These are different?
I think they do.
Yeah, I can say, I came across that too. It's the Orions.
Yes, there you go. Right.
Yeah, the Orions, and they're the alien lizard people that.
Well, remember the guy that blew up the RV in Nashville? Like, I don't know, what was that, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? He just stacked it full of dynamite and he blew it up. Thank God nobody was walking around it, just happened to be an empty street. Well, he was trying to raise awareness for the lizard people that were living among us. It was the most bizarre story.
Wow.
Yeah, totally. We got to do that whole episode because it was so freaky. Okay. So these insect people are somewhat related to the lizard people, and they all want to dominate the world. Oh, it's like Pinky and the Brain. I mean,
what are we going to do tomorrow, Pinky?
Try to take over the world.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. So this was all tied to Project Looking Glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of the yellow cube, the disc.
The yellow cube of knowledge.
And that supposedly was left behind by the the Orion. How, Bertie? How do you say that?
Orion. The constellation Orion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, it's funny that you say that because Dwight D. Eisenhower was very much into UFOs, and he had there's a lot of folks that were right along that timeline, but Eisenhower actually wanted to declassify a lot of stuff, and the Joint Chiefs had come up and said, you know what, no, we don't think that people are ready for anything like that. And it's, we kind of say it jokingly, but if you look back at movies from the 50s, that kind of stuff, that was a big time when they were talking about us being invaded and being visited and that kind of stuff. And that whole thing was really hot then, and it's kind of fallen off, but it's kind of resumed a little while ago when they had all those drones in the sky, and nobody knew who they were, and finally we were told, right, that they were ours, and I was like, I don't think so, but I think that and Bertie, correct me or help me out. I think they said that there was like 40 different types of species that are alien. Is it something around that number?
Something along that line, but there's at least 3 major ones here
Right.
that we constantly communicate with, and that would be the Greys, the Nordics, and the Reptilians.
Yeah.
Right. And the
That was
Nordics. Go
that
ahead.
podcast that you shared, Mad Max, with
Yeah.
Lear, the old Art Bell podcast with Lear.
Right.
That was
And
fascinating.
you know, it's funny because when they talk about that stuff, they talk about stuff like that being, you know, that's the way it was. As a matter of fact, on that podcast we talked about that I shared with you, Jackie Gleason was actually playing golf with President Nixon, and Secret Service, you know, we're the government, we're here to help, came out and said, hey, look, we've got an incident. And Nixon looked at Jackie Gleason and said, hey, do you want to actually go and see an alien? And Jackie Gleason is huge into UFO. He was huge into ufology, and I guess he was able to go and see some of that stuff, and it's so interesting. When I was a kid, this was years and years ago. I think it was before me. My mom, I think, she didn't sleep very well, and so she said she got up one night and there was a blue light outside, and it was just instead of the regular, you know, street lights or stars, there was a blue light out there. So, you know, she went back to bed and whatever, and a couple of weeks later, about a week later, I guess she went to a PTA meeting, and she was talking to some of the other women there, and they were saying, did you see this? Did you? Now, this is it was way before me, maybe 50s, early 60s. And as they were talking about, there was a group of them, like 5 or 6. These 2 guys came in, and she said that they had, and I don't know if she was full of crap or not, probably, but she said these 2 guys came in and said, hey, look, you didn't see anything. And they turned around and walked out. So by the time they could get to the front doors, these guys were gone. So Men in Black, maybe?
Men in Black, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Fascinating.
And not only with that, you know, back then, again, remember, we didn't have social media. We didn't have any outside influences. We followed, we did what we were told, and that's the way it was. So I don't know, like I said, if she was just full of it or if that truly happened, but she told the same story for a long time. So I don't know.
You never
Very
know.
interesting.
It's possible. I think it's possible, you know.
Yeah,
Here's the deal.
They actually have
government
talked
is-
about. They've actually talked about crashes, UFO crashes, and some of those UFO crashes were actually us doing our reverse engineering and us flying those, our people flying those, and crashing them because they didn't understand how they worked altogether.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of stuff that goes on that we don't know about.
Well, and I don't trust the government at all. Like, at all.
No.
Okay, just case in point, look what happened this week.
Right?
Ein's the what's his name?
Epstein?
Epstein? Epstein's list doesn't exist. There is no list. What?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
What? It's like, wait a minute. Pam Bondi or whatever her name is came out and said she had the list when she was sworn in and took that position. I've got the binder, I've got the list, and now they're like, there's no list. What?
It was just a binder. Yeah.
So that means that there's the level of people involved in that is so much worse than they even anticipated that
Right?
if they release it, our government crumbles. It will
Yeah.
be a shell
Yeah.
because people were going to lose their minds. So now there's no list. I'm sorry. Go ahead
Yeah.
and release it. But I know that's what they're thinking. They've got to be thinking that, like, we can't
Too
because
bad. Release
it's
it.
everybody. We can't do
Well,
this because there will be no voter confidence left at all.
I
I,
think
I
social
can
media has
go
already
ahead.
leaked the list. Social
Huh?
media. I think social media has already leaked the list because I was
Yeah.
surfing the old TikTok, and there's people that go got the list. It's in my
Oh, right.
comments.
Then show it. I've never seen it. Have you seen it? I haven't seen a list. Nothing that comes from.
I haven't seen it yet because I'm always like, yeah, right.
It's
What
not
about
out there.
the
There's
one they released
rumors.
right when he was arrested? Remember that one that was circulating?
Yeah,
Well, here's the deal. Here's my question. If there's no list, then why was he convicted?
Right.
And if there's no list that he didn't do these things, how come Delane isn't sitting in prison? So
Mm-hmm.
what? Okay, are you telling me? Because I'm sorry, but the the January 6 writers were all imprisoned without a trial for years
Right.
without a trial. So that's what we've come to now is that we just imprison people with no evidence whatsoever. We're just going to start throwing them in jail or in prison
Well,
and convicting them and buying. What are you buying juries now? So like
Yeah.
that's where then you have this Project Looking Glass and you have the Montauk and you have all of these different things that are going on. And one of the ones I wanted to talk about was is this Operation Mockingbird. Have you heard of that?
yes,
Okay, so Operation Mockingbird is started, let's see, in the 50s. So in 1977, it was exposed because Carl Bernstein, you remember him? He's won Pulitzer prizes and stuff, and he, I believe, he wrote a lot of expose type stuff, and he published this article in the Rolling Stone, and it was about the CIA basically working with 400 different journalists to. It was psyops. It was
yeah.
most of the journalists were in different countries, but a lot of them, some of them were here, and it was basically disseminating information they wanted people to buy off on. And so they were working. That's when they started buying journalists. It was way back then, and it was like in the 50s or so when all of this stuff, like you were talking about Mad Max in the 50s. We didn't have ways to really dig in and disprove it. You had to
Right.
take somebody like a Bernstein to do it because he had access, you know?
Mm.
Well,
So
you know,
we
it's
got the government doing these
yeah,
nefarious things like our whole lives, and we're supposed to trust
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
yeah. You know, it's funny that you say it like that because I had two brothers that were in Vietnam, and the only way there was only really two ways to communicate with them. One was a letter that probably took 4 months, right, to get our little town in California. The other way was a phone call, but you know their time wasn't our time. So if they said, "Well, I'm going to call the house at XYZ time," okay, boom, whatever. But I remember as a kid, and this goes back to our information sources, just like you said. You know, you'd watch
media
the
themselves.
news. Yeah, well, you'd watch the news at night, and you'd hope to see the guys that
Yeah.
and with and the what I'm trying to tie everything back together is, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, we were all groomed. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't have any of this social media. We had guys like Bernstein who would
Mm-hmm.
go, everybody knew exactly what he was doing, and they hated him for it because he was going to let some secrets out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and other people disappeared because of stuff like that too.
Oh boy. Yeah, they were suicided. Yeah.
Yeah. And
You know,
you talk about the S word with Epstein. I can tell you, and Doc Tovar will tell you the same thing. anybody that is on suicide watch or anything like that, you pay more attention to them. You have logs that you have to fill out every time. We if we had somebody that was on suicide watch, it was a 15-minute watch. Every 15 minutes you went through and you checked those guys out or gals or whoever, right? So when they said that this guy went and did what he did, um, I kind of called BS on that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what was he going to bring out? What was he going to say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see,
Well,
That's exactly what Doc says.
yeah.
Ground the clock. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Doc.
I think this is the biggest conspiracy probably of our lifetime at this point, because I think it's got to be 9 out of 10 politicians and 9 out of 10
Huge.
wealthy and 9 out of 10. You know what I'm saying? It has
Yeah.
to be. Otherwise, prove us wrong and release the information.
Yeah.
Stop everybody having all. There's a million uh,
Huh?
podcasts right now going on about this right now, all over the world, because they're like, wait a minute, I don't care what side of the political platform you're on. If somebody is doing something to children, it needs to be public so that
Yep.
they are locked up, so they
Hmm.
face the consequences for these actions.
Agreed.
Yeah.
100%.
Definitely.
100%.
So
100%.
I just couldn't believe it. I could not believe it when that happened, and I went, uh-oh,
Hmm.
that means it's so much worse than they thought.
Yeah.
But I don't
You're
know.
right. Well, and
Yeah.
the bad thing about it is, Mud Lover and I have talked about. I mean, she's a little bit more of a. Yeah, right, Dave. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Come
Yeah.
on, dude. Yeah, Ray Charles can see that there's a list. Um,
Right.
but Mud Lover and I talk about this a lot. There's one of those things that it just I'm not really good at math, but I know 2 and 2 is 4, right? Or the new math, it could be something. It could be 7.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
it's
care. But
45. Yeah.
yeah, right, exactly. And you got to star because you participated. But like I said, the other side of that is with these people that actually can go in there and yeah, they're all dirty. They're all corrupt. They're all dirty. They might go in there with good intentions. In
Doesn't
fact,
take long, does it?
Mud Lover and I were talking about this today. Do you go in there with the greatest of intentions, and does the greed take you over?
Hmm.
Yes.
Or power,
Yeah.
or both, or
Or
something. And
power?
what
Sure.
happened?
Yeah.
It's only been 6 months. So what happened? And then they said,
Yeah.
oh, everything was redacted. So we'll have to wait for the other list.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I,
Right.
I want to say so much that we'd get thrown off for.
Right.
Don't say
I,
it.
Yeah.
It's
and
not right.
it's unfortunate, because like I said, growing up, you aspired. Anybody can be the president of the United States. That is I would much rather put a shovel in the gutter and clean out mud,
Yep.
or here clean
Yeah.
out friggin' snow, than be the president. I don't want to do that. That is
Heck no.
nothing that I want to do. I
No.
you know I yeah, no, no,
It'll
no.
age
All
it
right.
fast.
Well, we can leave that conspiracy alone. Have you heard
Right.
of the conspiracy of the Denver airport being tied to the Illuminati, that it's the actual headquarters for the Illuminati?
Yeah,
Oh,
I've heard
wow.
that one. That's one of my
The
favorite
Denver
ones.
airport. Okay, so it starts with Lucifer, the
Yep.
big statue of the blue Mustang that's outside the airport on your way in, right? Because it has the glowing red eyes and the steamy, and that's
Doesn't it have a orange mane and tail? Or is that
I
the
think
Denver
he's
Broncos?
blue, but I think he has glowing red eyes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he has an orange mane and tail for the Broncos, you mean?
Yeah.
Is that yeah, I
Yeah.
don't I don't know if he does. I didn't see him with the orange mane and tail. But anyway, so the artist who created the statue said that the eyes were just something he wanted to add, like just glowy eyes. But now everybody's thinking that this thing is like a satanic symbol of. It's just craziness. People just are just crazy. They look for conspiracies. We have enough going on in real life.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because apparently, and then it came out about that particular airport has a whole city underneath. There's a whole functioning, right, tunnels and all this stuff. Well, I'll guarantee you, LAX has the same thing. They have certain places. So, but once these people get on the conspiracy train, and I'm guilty of it, get on that, and you're like, well, like Bertie said, well, his eyes are this, and he's yellow and blue, and he's or orange and blue and whatever, and the way that he's supposed to be facing some way that's gnarly as well. I don't know, but then who am I?
So
and then as soon as he finished
these-
building Lucifer, it toppled over and killed him.
Yeah, exactly.
most of these large structures, like these airports and like, shoot, even Navy Bethesda, I was there probably a dozen times before I realized the lower basement area had the restaurants and had like you said, a functioning city. It was all in the lower level, underground. But they have those set up. I mean, you have to have structures like that to hold these immense buildings up. They have, and everything is probably boiler operated for heating and everything else. So they have to have steam pipes everywhere. So you have to have structures like that underneath these things. There's nothing nefarious about why those structures are there. It's to hold up the structure up there.
Yeah, but again, like you said, it's easier for that some people run amok, right? And once you get into that point, you got 4 adults talking about the friggin' Simpsons right now. Something's working, and but I mean, yeah. So we're fine.
Yeah.
So,
But it's funny. So you get folks that are doing that, and you get enough folks on the train, and but again, what do we know? We know structurally, right, that has to be on there, like you said, boilers. Okay, so then you have to have vents, and then you have to have this, and then even some big hotels have tunnels.
Sure.
Go from wing to wing. So.
Did you guys ever watch the original movie, The Stand? The original?
Yes.
yeah.
That was years ago.
Yeah, with the virus that went out of control and killed everybody and blah, 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 right? So do you remember the long hallway, that film? Yeah. Where they were going through, it's supposed to be the CDC, like North Carolina or Virginia or something like that. And
Right.
they had all the bodies. That was actually filmed at the VA hospital in Salt Lake City, because
really?
they take you on little carts because it's so big. The hospital's so big, so they'll put you on little carts and they'll shuttle you around. And I'm looking at that. I'm looking at it. And the guy's looking at me, looking at it. The driver of the cart, and he goes, "You've seen this, haven't you?" And I went, "Yeah, I know. I've just seen it." I said, "This is the first time I've been down here, but it looks familiar." And he goes, "Yeah, it's The Stand. They filmed The Stand. I was here when they filmed it." So excited. Well, yeah, so these buildings all have this. But here's another part of the conspiracy for the airport, right? Was that there's this dedication marker for the building when they put it up. And it is a dedication. It says, New World Airport Commission. So, and it has some Masonic symbolism on the tribute, on the marker. And so people tie that back to the Illuminati for the one world order. And then you throw in Lucifer. And because there's so much said about the Freemasons and Satanism, it's like, you just can go down this trail and this trail and this trail.
Right?
You also forgot all the all the Illuminati and Masonic imagery that's around the Denver
Yeah.
airport that had
Mm.
conspiracy theorists going, oh, this is a bunker, because people have
Yeah.
sworn they've
We're
seen
saying that.
people have these cards, and I've got a card that I use for work that they can beep, they beep open doors and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But they get to
Mhm.
a door that looks just a little suspicious and out of place, and they can't open it, but they sure see guys in black suits and hats walk up and beat the door and walk in. Kind of crazy stuff like that.
Can
Well,
you,
it's funny.
can you put your microphone closer to you? I'm having a hard time hearing you through.
It's
There's
funny
also
is
something quite interesting about the Denver airport. Put it up on Google Earth. If I do it, the podcast is going to go nuts. The runways are shaped like a swastika, and I never noticed it until I went over Google Earth today and I looked at it.
where at?
Oh, that's
It's a
right.
swastika. Okay, now remember, the swastika was taken by Hitler. It
Right.
wasn't originally for the German, the Reich, and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't for that. It was
It was for
adopted by Hitler.
good luck and
Yes, and he
prosperity,
turned it
stuff
into
like that.
something
It's
really
been all over the world.
right. But go and look at the layout of the airport. Maybe I can bring it up without this going bananas. Let me try it. It's
Oh,
quite interesting. I read that and I went, no.
oh yeah, I remember
So
hearing about that. I'm like,
yeah. I thought
You
that
know,
was pretty interesting.
nothing surprises me anymore. I
So,
really, that kind of stuff, nothing surprises me
okay, here
anymore.
we go. I'm going to bring this up so you can look at it. That's what's interesting is I'm going down the rabbit hole of how people are tying the Masons to like all of this Satanistic kind of stuff, these practices. And then you have the Masonic. Look at this runway, this runway, this runway, this runway.
Oh wow! See, I never noticed that.
I never
That's
noticed
friggin'
it,
nuts.
isn't it? Okay,
That's the
so
kind of stuff
you
that they
have
hide in plain sight.
in plain sight. I never thought about it, and then because I've done this before. I've looked at this on Google Maps and never noticed it. And went, oh my God, they're right.
Wow.
Then you have the Masonic stuff, right? And then I went
Right.
back and I started reading stuff on how Hitler tried. So Hitler was they were really into the occult, super duper into the occult. And they thought that the Masons had, first of all, they thought they had the alchemist stone, which was the stone that could turn lead into gold. They thought
oh,
the the
the
Masons,
philosopher's stone.
no, they
Well,
called it the alchemist stone
oh,
because of alchemy changing lead to gold. So they thought it was that the Masons held it, that they had it somewhere. So they started raiding in Europe, they started raiding all of the Masonic lodges and taking all of their papers and all of their books and all of their everything, because they are very symbolistic in their they had rituals and they have a lot of
Okay.
symbols. So they took it all, thinking that was super duper important. And he closed all of the Masonic lodges because he wanted to harness that power himself. So
Wow.
I'm reading all of the stuff on what Hitler did and the Third Reich did to the Masons and how the actually, and I have it somewhere. Yeah, maybe this one here. How, sorry. Oh, so some of Hitler's closest three guys, and I'm trying to come up with their names. Um, how they actually, yeah. So how they actually started their own version of the Mason Lodge, and they call it the Thule Society. That was really fascinating. It was super duper fascinating because they basically thought if they could take all of their teachings and all the material and everything else, they could harness some kind of occult power. And they came up with this thing called the Thule Society, and it was a combination of like paganism and Nordic myths, and that's what they called the
Huh.
Thule Society. And it was and if I said their names, and I never wrote them down, and see, Mud Lover, I'm having a urine moment.
I'm rubbing off on you.
I wrote it down because it was the three guys that were so close to Hitler.
One of them,
Himmler.
Oh, here we go. Hermann Gehrig, Rudolf Hess,
Yeah.
and Alfred Rosenberg.
right?
And they're the ones that started this Thule Society, and it was based on the teachings of the Masonic Lodge and all of their symbolism and everything else. And they wanted to harness all that. And they believed that somewhere in all of this stuff that they were raiding was this alchemist stone. And between that and all this occult knowledge that they were going to gain, that they'd be able to rule the world. Because Hitler was really into the occult, super duper into it.
Yeah. He was also into zombie military. He wanted to, yeah. So his thought process was if you could not kill his military, they would keep marching forward. And I guess he had his guys on amphetamines, and they had actually started doing a lot of work with like in Auschwitz and stuff like that. Not only were they horrible people there, but they were actually doing scientific, at that time, scientific stuff to them, say, how can they reanimate people? And I mean, Hitler was very intelligent, and he was one of those guys that not only was he intelligent, he surrounded himself with like-minded people.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this before. If things would have changed, there's always a couple tweaks in battles, and especially back then.
Mm-hmm.
But if things would have went a different way, we might have all been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything would have turned. That you're saying, Mad Max.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. I went down a rabbit trail about 2 years ago, and I was
That's right, Dave.
Germany itself was giving out methamphetamine back in the day, like candy, to all of its citizens. All kinds of drugs. Keep them drugged, keep them happy. I mean, that's basically what they were doing. And Hitler himself was really, he was an addict. And his girlfriend, whatever, remember her?
Ava Braun.
Ava Braun.
And she didn't believe in doing any of these drugs, but she ended up doing them because she couldn't relate to Hitler when he was using. And so she would start using so that she could be kind of on the same wavelength with him. And it was crazy. Like all of Germany they were all addicted to all kinds of drugs back then. I had no idea this was going on. I mean, it certainly didn't teach that to us in grade school.
Nope. And guess how fast that
Well, it's unfortunate.
much lasted. It lasted only a couple of years because it just decimated German populations. Because they got this idea from Japan, because Japan was the first people to make it, and Japan would hand it out the same as you were saying, to its military and its citizens. And when Germany came over to visit, they were like, "Wow, you guys are just buzzing. How do you do it?" And they're like, "Our little helpers here." And they go, like, he tried it and he's like, "Wow, all this energy. Okay, let's give it to our people." Meanwhile, back in Japan, you've ever seen methamphetamine addiction? It is decimated, and they're watching their population just go. And they're like, okay.
Into the toilet, yeah.
Yep. And they went, it's illegal. Meanwhile, in Germany, that's why they were marching so hard, is everybody's hopped up on methamphetamine. Usually in chocolate bars, that's what they gave the tank drivers. Was something called, like, I don't know, it was Pons or something. And what they would do is they would break off a piece of nub of chocolate and eat that, and they're good for 10 to 16 hours of just nonstop go, go, go. And then eventually they're watching their German cities just go, and then they finally went, no more. Because, ugh. But, yeah, that's when they, Blitzkrieg, stuff like that, they were all spun out of their gourd, just go, go, go. So that's one of the darker facts of World War II.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, drugs have been a part of every war, right?
Yep.
I mean, we had military over in Iraq. There was poppy fields and stuff like that in some of those Middle Eastern countries that they're producing heroin, and some of those guys are flying some of that stuff back. I mean, you know, Cumberland Road. Remember that song? Down the country, yeah, because they're talking about Vietnam and drug trafficking and everything else, and it's part of every war.
True.
I think, and you know what? Again, that and I hate to say it because I'm very pro law enforcement, pro fire, pro all that stuff, pro military, and for some of the things that I've heard where, these guys, I mean, they're going 30, 40 hours. There's got to be like Bertie was saying, some kind of little helper on board to keep going.
Yeah,
definitely.
There you go. And like Dave says, that strain from Afghan is pure. It's not the watered down stuff that the people on the streets are getting. That stuff was so pure. Even seasoned addicts were like, whoa, reinventing the wheel. But back to the conspiracy theory. I mean, there's so many things going on, but I would like to kind of take it up a level, kind of make us a little bit happier or sadder, whichever. There's a huge conspiracy. There's a huge conspiracy theory about the movie Grease. Now, I know we've all seen the movie Grease. We've all seen the movie Grease. Now, remember at the beginning where Olivia Newton-John, she was a very nice lady. I actually met her, very nice lady. I never met Travolta because whatever. But so anyhow, in the song, the intro song, where they were down on the beach and she almost drowned and he saved her. Well, the conspiracy theory is that she did drown.
No.
She
And that
did drown?
Do I have to mute you, mud lover?
No, I'll do it myself.
But again, so they talked about as she's going through her death, like the drowning incident, they actually talked about that was the first encounter, and that's when she actually drowned. That Danny actually saved her, and she was in a coma, and this whole movie was a dream sequence to her. And it's go ahead.
So she's in a coma, and this is just a kind of fever dream, the whole movie.
For the most part, yeah. They're saying so. Summer in the lyrics of Summer Nights, and I'm not going to sing for you guys, but where Danny recounts about Sandy from the drowning, they're interpreted as evidence that she never survived the incident. And as they talk about, remember the car flew away. That was how she finally died, and that was her soul ascending to heaven. So now,
No.
I know.
How much do you have to drop to come up with this? That's what I'm thinking.
No,
Well,
David, no.
Yeah.
Actually, David has a point. That would explain all
No,
the singing
no.
and dance.
Come on, Doc. Exactly. Hey, in heaven, that's what we're all going to do, right? We're all going to sing and dance, right?
Yeah,
Come
we're all
on,
gonna,
Doc.
they're all
Yeah.
going to
I know
sing
Doc.
out and play the harp.
You know, you guys can say what you want. I know me and Doc, we think about the same level. Either that might be fourth grade or sixth grade. But yeah, so it's interesting that they can take something like that and create a conspiracy. You know, we've talked about a lot of them this evening. But I mean, something that we have all seen, that would be the last thing you would think of,
Yeah, no, I'm
right?
not
As a
buying it at all.
conspiracy.
No, me
Well,
either.
you know, again,
So,
again,
did you guys
Sat
ever see the
down.
movie a long time ago called Jacob's Ladder?
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember Jacob's Ladder. Yeah.
I went and saw that, right? But apparently, if you didn't drop acid, you wouldn't get it. I certainly didn't get that. We walked out of there, and I'm like, what did we just watch? That
Yeah.
probably happened. It was written for people to do drugs during the movie.
Yeah.
I had
I
no
think, yeah.
idea.
So, you know,
The Wizard of
and I'm
Oz
going to,
conspiracy?
the
What's
Wizard of Oz, the same thing. Don't say anything bad about the Wizard of Oz ever.
Oh,
That was my
you can talk
grandpa's
about
first movie he
dreams.
saw.
Ever. That's my
Favorite?
favorite movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have
The
you heard
Flying
about
Monkeys?
playing? Have you heard about playing the Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd at the same time as
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz, and the whole movie matches up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're curious about that, you can watch it on YouTube. They have it all queued up. Like,
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
I can
Pretty
tell you
interesting
guys
stuff.
about a scene in The Wizard of Oz that my grandfather helped film. So
What?
that was one of the first movies he worked on. Well, he did westerns before that, but that was a pretty early movie. Okay, this is
32.
politically incorrect. I don't know how else to say it. I guess they're called little people now, right? The
Mhm.
flying monkeys were little people in suits,
Right.
Mhm.
and they were on the soundstage, suspended by wires. Now, my grandfather, you have to remember, he was always a little tipsy. And he would say, you know what little people are? You say one thing and they all start swinging. And and he says they're just beating the hell out of each other, swinging around. And these wires and these monkey suits, tearing suits off each other. And he goes, they lower the soundstage, untangle them all, get them all in new monkey suits because they're tearing each other apart. And then they'd raise the soundstage and they'd have the scenery going by to make them look. It took them days to film that one segment because he goes, the hungriest little thing you ever saw in your life.
Well, you know, so apparently, again, that is my favorite movie in the entire world. And they said that, I mean, there's a lot of things that happened in that movie. Like Buddy Ebsen was supposed to be the Tin Man, but he was allergic to the silver paint.
Yeah.
But Ray Bolger protected Judy Garland because the producers thought it was funny to have these little people, midgets, whatever, gnomes, I don't care. And they would leave her with them, and apparently they were just horrible people. And so Ray Bolger would come and protect her from them, and apparently again, you never saw Judy Garland without Ray Bolger, and the other way around.
Interesting.
So yeah,
Well,
and
there you go.
apparently they talked about the bird, right? They talked about the little person that actually hung himself. There's a conspiracy theory about that he got his heart broke or something had happened, that he actually had hung himself. So when they open that scene, and it's kind of like it's when they first start going down the yellow brick road, and it's night when they're going to go get the Tin Man. There's actually, they say, after they redid it, they took that part out, but you can actually see this. It looks like somebody that hung himself. Well,
I wish my
they covered
grandfather
that
was
up.
around to ask him.
I know, I do too. I would have
Right?
loved to. Oh my God, just to
Yeah.
hang out with that guy. Um,
Wow.
but it's one of those things where they redid it, and the story that they put out was that it was a bird, and that it was a goose that had gotten that they weren't able to wrangle. So the bird was running around on set, which I find hard to believe
Well, I do too.
because,
Knowing
so
how big the
there's,
sets are and how busy they are. Yeah.
oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's, that, that the snow was asbestos, right?
Oh yeah.
The snow was
Yeah.
actually asbestos. And there was a lot, like I said, there was a lot of things that happened in that movie. But again, I think that movie was done in 32.
Hmm.
So there was no way they had any idea
Yeah.
of what, and it cost a lot of money to film that, and they filmed it
Yep.
from different angles. There's a lot of single camera work in there, but there's a lot of they did a lot of angles as well. And there's just, I mean, the Wicked Witch of the West, she friggin' she got burned really bad, or the
She got
Wicked
burned
Witch of the
really
East,
bad.
yeah, she got burned really bad, and yeah, just there's so much
There's a lot
stuff.
of stuff in that movie, and the technology. You got to remember the technology at that time. And when he tried to market that movie for a long time, and nobody would take it.
Oh
Really,
wow.
He tried to sell it as a book, and nobody would buy it originally. I mean, it just,
Wow.
and then one day somebody said, I think we can make this, and it took off. But
Huh.
he worked on that for a long time, trying to get somebody to take interest in that story. And
Wow.
he wrote that book, and it was like 10 years before anybody bid on it, and it was
yeah,
Frank Bloom. Um, yeah, he actually was going bankrupt, and that the idea was something that saved him from being destitute. And it's
Gosh.
just interesting the way that stuff works. But
mhm,
we've talked about a lot of things like that. Um, is it the luck of the draw? Did he, like Bertie said, did he see the cube, or we'll go down another rabbit hole. Did he sell his self, his soul to the devil? There's a lot of things that, or was it just like you said, the luck of the draw? The right person was in the right place at the
mhm,
right
right,
time.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I don't know. Interesting stuff. I think we could talk for many
Forever.
weeks on these
Oh, heck
topics.
yeah.
So, well,
Heck
thanks
Yeah.
yeah.
for hanging out with us tonight, folks. And we will bring you
Absolutely.
another show next week on another bizarre topic. I'm just sure of it.
Yeah.
We'll catch you guys later. Make sure that you've subscribed so that you get notifications on our content. And we appreciate you all. Bye-bye.
Good
Absolutely,
night.
guys. Have a great week. Like and subscribe. It helps us out a ton, like Colleen said. So you guys have a great week, and we'll see you when we see you.
Miss you too, David.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Dave. Love you, Dave. You know I do.